What's up again, everybody? Well, Outsiders pre-release season is finally here, and we're about to get our hands on the cards. And if you're a brand new player to the game of Flesh and Blood, or you've never experienced a pre-release before and you have a few questions, well, this is the video for you, because today we're going to talk about sealed Outsiders, the sealed format in general, and what to expect at this pre-release. Hopefully this video helps you. Hopefully it makes the whole process of going to pre-release and participating all that much more smooth. And if you enjoy the video, consider making a number climb slightly higher, because that's what cool kids do. Before we get too far into it though, let's start by looking at what the Outsiders set is all about. In the world of Wraith, which is where Flesh and Blood is set, there's an area called the Pits, and this lies under a very technologically advanced city called Metrics. And the Pits is where the detritus and the runoff and the chemical waste all basically end up, and unfortunately so do many people down on their luck, or many desperate folks, or people you may not want to cross because they may end up taking more than your money. They may take your life. And this set is all about that place and those people. You are thrust into the pits and have the opportunity to play as either an assassin, a ranger, or a ninja. There are 6 heroes in this set that you can play as in sealed and draft formats, and the card pool itself is full of class cards, generic cards, and even hybrid cards that can be shared by 2 different classes. For example, assassin and ranger, or ninja and assassin. All of this leads to an incredibly varied, limited experience. Whether you're drafting or playing sealed, when you open your packs, the world is your oyster. You have a lot of different ways that you can take things, and it really rewards player skill for knowing in draft or in sealed where your cards are leading you. So let's take a look at the 6 different heroes that you can play at in this set, starting with Uzuri. Uzuri is an assassin hero that can trick your opponent by swapping out or switching an attacking stealth card, one of these attacks that has the keyword stealth on it, with a card from their hand of cost 2 or less. The attack that ends up taking the place of that stealth card is oftentimes very strong and perhaps threatens a very scary on-hit effect, which makes it difficult for the opponent to guess what you're doing and when you're doing it. Arachne Solitary Confinement is the other assassin that you can play as in this set, and I do want to point out that this hero does start at 19 health instead of 20 health for the young version. This hero is only printed in this specific form as a young hero, meaning you can only play this version of Arachne in Blitz and limited play. Oh, you can also play it in Commoner as well. A great format, by the way. Arachne gives go again to the first stealth attack that you play each turn, which is a huge benefit. And if you like to go wide and threaten lots of small packets of damage with scary on-hits, Arachne might be the aggro hero for you. Ninja are also playable again in Outsiders, and these 2 ninja have made their way to the pits to find the answers to some long forgotten questions that threaten their clan back home in Mysteria. Starting with Katsu. Katsu is the quintessential combo hero with an effect that allows him to discard a cost 0 card from his hand when his first attack action hits, to go find a card with combo, banish it, and then string it onto your attacks this turn. This essentially allows him to complete the combo chains that are so integral to his playstyle and can threaten massive damage and on-hits. Benji the Piercing Wind is a young ninja hero that starts at the low health of 17. Yes, by far the lowest of all the heroes in this set. And why is that? Well, Benji has an incredibly strong ability that makes your attack action cards with 2 or less attack unblockable by cards from hand. If your opponent wants to stop a 1 or 2 attack action card that you play, they have to use equipment or a defense reaction from the arsenal. Otherwise, that card and that attack is coming through unblocked. This allows Benji players to send a flurry of small attacks onto their opponents with impunity, and very much encourages you to pick up those blue and yellow attack action cards in draft and sealed. And last but not least, we have 2 different rangers that players can pick up at their pre-release in Outsiders. The first being fan favorite Azalea. Azalea lives by the motto of one shot, one kill, and while she can play other attack action cards that can allow you to string together longer turns, she thrives by playing off the top of her deck, giving a single attack a buff, and then dominate with her hero effect and pushing huge amounts of damage onto the opponent with one knock of that death whistle. Riptide is a brand new hero to Flesh and Blood, much like Uzuri, that starts at 19 health and gives you the very unique ability to load your arsenal after you play a card from your hand. This oftentimes bypasses the extra resource needed to put a card into your arsenal, perhaps an arrow using one of your bows, and instead, just by playing a card from your hand, you are able to load that bow with an arrow and then fire it out. This allows Riptide to be very flexible with playing both arrows and attack actions, and also encourages his secondary ability, because whenever he plays a trap and that trap triggers its effect, he deals 1 damage to the attacking hero. Now that we know a little bit more about what the set is actually about and who you're going to be playing as, let's break down the sealed format, which all pre-releases are currently set up to run. In Flesh and Blood, the sealed format is a format wherein all players receive 6 packs of cards from a specific set. At the same time, all players open all 6 packs and arrange the contents into what is called a card pool. This card pool is then used to create a 30-card deck, of which you can use cards from your chosen hero's class as well as generic cards. Do note that you may not introduce any cards to your card pool unless they are token cards. Tokens are freely available for you to usually pick up from your LGS during the event or from the players around you if they aren't using them. A few rules on deck construction. You have 30 cards minimum that you must include in your deck, but there is no upper limit, so you may actually include more than 30 cards if you choose, and sometimes in certain formats it's actually very beneficial for you to include more than 30 cards. Namely, if you are a hero that doesn't have access to a weapon with attack damage, you may want to consider running extra cards in your deck to avoid running out throughout the match. Another nice point to remember and consider when deck building is that there is no limit to the number of named cards at a certain pitch cost that you can run, unlike in other formats where you may only include 2 or 3 of a specific card at that color. If you have more than 3 red virulent touches, you can run those in this format. So once you have opened all 6 of your packs at the pre-release, go ahead and arrange them, like I mentioned, into a card pool, and I very much recommend that you do so in this way. Put all of your individual class cards into their own separate pools, into their own separate stacks. And in this specific set, there are a few interesting crossover hybrid cards. So there are cards that can be played by both. Separate those into their own individual stacks as well. And then finally, of course, separate out your generic cards. And then after doing all of that, I recommend highly that you count all of your card amounts and get a rough number of where your ratios fall. When building a deck in sealed format in Flesh and Blood in general, it is almost always easiest to build a deck that has a large amount of class cards. It can be very difficult, particularly with certain sets, to build a deck out of mostly generic cards. But knowing how many cards you have for each class within your pool helps a lot to narrow things down, particularly in this set where there are crossover cards, and include those crossover cards in your counts. So for example, if you have 13 assassin cards, but you did pull 2 hybrid cards, your pool now has 15 cards that you can build with Assassin. If you have 15 Ranger cards and 2 of those Assassin cards cross over into Ranger as hybrid cards, you have a larger Ranger pool. Now that doesn't mean you should immediately play Ranger. Of course, look at the card quality within, and that comes down to knowing what those classes want to do, which we can talk about a little bit later. Now, Outsiders has perhaps one of the best, if not the best, generic card pools in any set in the past 2 years. This generic card pool is absolutely stellar, particularly in this limited format. And so with that in mind, do factor in the quality of your generics, and where they generally want to slot in. A lot of these cards have natural fits in specific heroes. Take a look at what they do, what they like to enable or allow you to do, and then figure out how those most easily fit into perhaps one of your larger card pools for your class cards. So let's talk about what kind of cards might lead you into playing each of these heroes. If you go into your card pool and you see a large proliferation of stealth cards at a variety of colors, it doesn't all have to be red, it could be yellow and blue, and you also find some valuable 1 to 2 cost large attack action cards, preferably with scary on hits, and they could even be generic, then this seems like a fantastic pool for Uzuri, because she can use those stealth cards, whether they're yellow, red, or blue, to swap out and to switch in some of these more powerful generic or powerful assassin attacks. If you have a large number of red assassin stealth cards and some of these really fantastic attack reactions that can fall on those stealth cards, granting inertia tokens or blood rot pox tokens or even frailty tokens to your opponent, then lean heavy into Arachne, because Arachne will give your stealth attacks go again if they are the first ones each turn, allowing you to attack with your weapons first and then follow up with several stealth attacks, threatening attack reactions on top. If you find your ninja pool to have a large number of the same combo line cards, meaning that cards that feed into the next combo line in the chain, look at their viability and what they do and how many of each of those cards you have, and then see how Katsu feels, because Katsu's very much looking to pull those combo cards out of his deck by connecting with the very first one each turn. And definitely keep in mind how many copies of Be Like Water you have, or Descending Gust Wave, Surging Strike, and Twin Twisters. All of these early combo starters or combo chain continuers like Descending Gust Wave are really fantastic in Katsu. And if you look at your ninja card pool and see lots of 1 or 2 attack cards, then this could lead you to playing Benji and being very successful. If your ninja cards have natural go again already printed on the card, if they're cheap, and if they are 1 or 2 attack, then Benji is going to make very good use of those cards. By making them unblockable, Benji really just allows you to play the game on a different axis. And finally, we come to the Ranger class. If you find a lot of Ranger traps in your pool, then why not give Riptide a try? You don't need a ton of them. You may not find a ton of them in what is essentially 6 packs because they are at rare, but if you do get your hands on 3 or 4 of them, they can be very useful in this format. Riptide also makes very good use of generic attacks in this set, and you should definitely keep an eye out for Virulent Touch and Death Touch, because those 2 cards are some of the most powerful cards in the set, not just for Riptide, but for Ranger and Assassin in general. If you find Virulent and Death Touches in your card pool, definitely consider Assassin and definitely consider Riptide. And of course, I saved the best for last. What do you look for if you want to play Azalea? The answer? Well, it doesn't really matter, because you should just play Azalea because she is the absolute best. In all seriousness though, you're going to want a lot of pumps that can be played beforehand, and you're going to want a large proliferation of arrows. Red and yellow arrows are of course best in this set, but don't forget you can include and fire off blue arrows, and with some of the pumps that are available to Ranger in this set, they can both be damaging and provide some really scary status effects for your opponent. If you find lots of arrows and lots of pumps both at generic and on the Ranger side of your class card pool, then it's time to become a member of the Azalea cult. And a few final little points that you can take and run with if you're a new player or an experienced player. This set functions on a different axis in a lot of different ways to previous sets. Previous sets oftentimes included cards at the breakpoint of 4, because a standard card blocks for either 2 or 3, and so if you could push damage for 4, you would find a lot of success. Well, this set doesn't necessarily work on that axis. It works on the axis of pushing packets of 3 or 6 damage. Most cards in this set will attack for 3 or for 6, meaning that if a card blocks for 3, then a 6 attack is a 2-card block and a 3 attack is completely covered up. If you find cards that can push breakpoints like 4 or 5, it would behoove you to delve into them and see if they function in a deck of your choice. Also, there are a large number of cards that block for 2 in this set, both class cards and generic cards. That means that some of these innocuous 3 attack cards that you wouldn't look at in other sets are a lot more playable and have the chance of actually activating their on hit, particularly if you can reduce the block ability of your opponent's cards, which means that Spider's Bite is really good in this format. It also makes all of these 3-block defense reactions that can be played by Ranger and sometimes also Assassin very good in general, because they are instant speed 3 blocks. So keep this in mind when you are building your deck. Don't function on an axis of 4 as a breakpoint. Think of it more as 3 as the breakpoint. Also, this set has a lot of focus put on the various tokens and status effects that you can give your opponent. I want to put these in a sort of hierarchy for you. So the S tier token that you can create for your opponent to take damage from is Blood Rot Pox. If you can create Blood Rot Pox tokens for your opponent, you're basically guaranteeing 2 damage. They can pay in to stop it, but oftentimes they just won't, and they may not even have the resources to. Blood Rot Pox is the best token you can create. In my opinion, the next token down and the next best token is the Inertia token, simply because it prevents your opponent from arsenaling a card. And this is a slower format because it operates on that 3-axis. Breakpoints are not as prevalent, and therefore having a 5-card hand versus a 4-card hand is perhaps even more important than in any other set prior. Finally, Frailty tokens fall to the 3rd spot in my hierarchy tier list of tokens, but don't let that fool you, because in limited formats the Frailty token is very good still, and sometimes may outweigh, depending on your matchup, the other 2. So there you go, that is a beginner's guide to the Outsiders pre-release. Hopefully you found this helpful, and if you are a new player or you just wanted some questions answered or to feel better about pre-release, I hope you at the very least enjoyed yourself and maybe even learned a thing or 2. If you did and you want to support the channel so more of this stuff can happen, become a patron up there. Your name gets to scroll through the video all the time. It's a fantastic honor, and one that I am so thankful for all of those wonderful people up there. They make the world go round for me, and you can become one as well. Check out the link in the description, and if you want to see this number climb slightly higher, all you have to do is press a red button. As always, everybody, thanks for watching.